Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Becoming Resources channel. And today I brought my dad back on to talk through some leadership concepts. We were having breakfast and this leadership concept kind of popped up somewhat organically. He was kind of talking about something and it sparked an idea in me.
Well, let's start a different way.
Okay.
So we didn't talk last time. So I want to talk about myself.
Let's do it.
Let me do that last time.
I'm sorry.
You actually did, but I just didn't do it.
Yeah, I asked you.
So I've been married for 40 years to a wonderful woman. Her name is Connie. And so I dated her. She was a junior in high school in Kansas City. So I walked into, we talked about playing basketball. I played small college basketball in southern Missouri. And I walked into a gym the first day at school as a freshman. And I said, ooh, she's good looking. And I was standing next to a guy that was a junior on the basketball team. He goes, that's my girlfriend, buddy. I'm like, ooh, sorry. He goes, but she's got a sister. I'm like, oh. He goes, you want to meet the sister? I said, sure. So that next weekend, we drove to Kansas City, Missouri, and I met the sister, which is now my wife. And I preached on that before. Sometimes our eyes can be on something we want so bad and think it's so great for us. But if we just slow down for a minute and pay attention, God might have a sister, which could be a better choice. And so I got the best choice, and she's great. Been married 40 years, and she's been the love of my life and supported the ministry that we've done, and then God created, but through Connie, beautiful daughter Jill. And she looks a lot like her mama, thank goodness, not like me, but then we are very similar. And you might say this maybe 10 podcasts from now, if we actually do this for 10 times. You're like, why is he wearing a hat? Well, first of all, I don't have a hair, and it's very cold. So as you get older, and I'm somewhere in my 60s probably, if you were guessing.
Probably? You don't know?
I mean, I feel 70, but hey, I mean 60s. So it's cold. Right now my head is, so when you have a hat on, and then, I'm very much just a creature of habit, right?
Yeah.
So I like black. So I was thinking about this today. If I was by myself, I would have a 400 square foot tiny home. As long as I had a shower, bathroom, a refrigerator, a TV, a bed, then I just would wash my clothes and wear the same thing the next day, and I would have eggs and bacon for breakfast, a BLT for lunch, and a steak for dinner.
And potatoes or steak and fries.
And I would go to sleep and repeat the next day.
Yeah. No.
So, anyway.
He's predictable.
And that's a good thing because I'm consistent. I'm predictable.
Consistency. Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day.
You can rely on me to wear black.
Craig Rochelle eats the same 5 things every day. Makes you feel better.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about consistency and taking out the guesswork from everyday decisions. Like, it takes me a little bit of time to think through my outfit. Him, he just goes to his closet and pulls out the next thing.
Because you only buy black things like turtlenecks, and that's your choice. So I got 4 of those in case laundry doesn't get done. And I just wear the one next to the one I wore yesterday.
You could do what Tori did. So we had this pastor friend, but he would have a shirt and pants and then shoes. And so he'd just go to his closet and he'd grab the next shirt and the next pair of pants. It didn't matter what it was. So that's how he got dressed. Literally, sometimes it matched up. Sometimes he looked ridiculous. He didn't care. He's like, that's what I'm wearing today. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just pulling it out of my closet. And then when he's done, he puts it back on the outside and it works its way back in. Bam!
So
that's a true story.
So this has nothing to do with the leadership.
It doesn't. Absolutely nothing.
But we just thought maybe you'd want to know those things, and if you don't, then maybe you want to know this. So we talked about leadership.
Then here's where you want to start.
This is where you want to start. So
right here.
So you can rewind or don't rewind and start now.
Rewind it. Just scrub through the video.
Notice I almost hit my hand on the table, but last time we were told not to do that, so I didn't do that.
Don't break the rules.
Don't break the rules.
Of the podcast.
Rule maker, not a rule breaker, most of the time.
I think we both make rules and we both break rules. Let's be honest.
Bend.
We both follow the rules that are good.
If the rule doesn't make sense, it's a suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. We follow the rules that are good and that need to be followed. But rules that don't make sense, let's just make them better.
They're a suggestion.
They are a suggestion. And one that we're not going to take. So the concept we were talking about. So we were at breakfast and we were talking, and something that he had told me when I transitioned. So I was on his staff. He was lead pastor of a church in Surprise, Arizona. And I was on his staff as a creative arts pastor for a number of years. And then I transitioned to being an executive pastor, which put me over several other ministries. So instead of focusing on one area, I was in multiple areas, which I kind of did as a creative arts pastor, but we just kind of made it official. But at that point, I was so used to doing a lot of things and making sure things were actually physically getting done that when I moved into this new role, I got really stressed out because I'm like, people won't leave me alone. They won't stop asking me questions. They won't stop talking to me. And I don't understand how I can get anything done. And I was telling him, this is where the leadership concept came from, that he told me, that's your job. Your job is to fix things. Your job is to lead people. Your job is not to do the physical work. So you need to take the very first day after a Sunday for church, which was Monday, and you need to fix things. That's your fixed day. And then the rest of the week is your day to lead people. So if you don't have time to lead people because you're doing things, you need to find a way to not be doing those things and be with your people. And so then I thought, well, that's a concept. A way to gauge if you're doing that is when you take a vacation, can you take a vacation and not get a phone call that has with a decision that has to be made while you're on vacation for what, 1 out of 52 weeks of the year? Like, honestly, high level leaders probably don't take vacation as much as they should. Yeah. And so for some reason, every decision needs to be made while you're gone. Well, you might need to look at your leadership a little bit and think, when I'm there, am I doing what I should be doing? So that's kind of...
So, one example, the current place I'm in, I've had like 17, 18 jobs. I can't keep one. But the current place I'm in now, the leader that I work directly for, the large nonprofit, said, hey, I need you to do 3 things. I want you to break down silos, if there are silos, because that can happen when you're a large organization and moving fast. I want you to build systems that outlast yourself, and I want you to speak in and build the next generation. So when you're gone, next generation can use those systems that you had and enjoy that unity and non-siloed environment that you're able to speak into. So in that same vein, the question is, how can you leave the place better than you found it?
Right.
That's what a leader does, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to have people to do that. Next generation people, they're going to be around longer than you are, younger than you are. So what you do in order to not just take a vacation, that's one thing, right? Be gone.
It's just a way. That's a way to assess where you're at. Really, is where the concept.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. How can you take a vacation? How can they take a vacation and enjoy it with their family and not be stressed? And so I work around people sometimes that go, I'm not going to take a vacation because when I come back, it's going to be more messed up, and that's a terrible way to live. And then when you're on vacation, I remember early on when I was younger, your age, that my wife Connie would say, okay, if you get a week off, then we're going to plan the fun day on Wednesday, because the first 3 days you're just kind of degressing of what you're at. And then on Thursday, you're getting built back up on what's coming on the Monday. So fun days on Wednesday. And I'm like, that's unhealthy too.
It's one day.
It's one day. And if you take 2 weeks, then essentially you've got the 10 days in the middle or something. So, so all that's unhealthy. So the priorities of life are God, family, ministry, and then your job, hobby. We'll talk about that another day. But you've got to keep those priorities straight. And the way to do that is to make sure that when you're away, you're away. With your family, you're with family, right? And you're giving them the best.
Right. So
that's a great way to gauge, are you building your leadership?
Right.
And so the question this morning was a little bit, or not the question, but, how do you get away? And maybe it's not be there anymore. Maybe it's you're sick in the hospital for a month. Or vacation. But how can the business go on without you? And if it can't, then we talked about maybe you're not cut out to lead that place.
Yeah.
So quickly, some things came to my mind. The first thing was to take people on a journey in your decision making process.
Yeah, so you called it context was the first thing.
Yeah.
So you give them context.
Yeah. So when I'm making a decision, a lot of times I will use my hands. A lot of times I'll use a board.
We both do that.
Yeah, a lot of times. But what I'll do is I'll take time to explain to the people around me. And first of all, you need to hire good leaders or leaders that have great potential. That's one. But the second thing is when you have those leaders, to spend time with them.
Right.
Spend time teaching them and talking to them about, hey, I want you to be in the room. I'm getting ready to have a meeting. After the meeting's over, explain to them the decision you made, what you're thinking, why you're thinking. And you're not trying to duplicate yourself, but you're trying to show them why these decisions were made, not made, why it was a yes, a no, a not yet, and help them understand. So that's like after you hire a good leader, a potential good leader, you've got to build the context or the why into your decision making. Yeah. And when you do, then when you're gone for the day, for the week, the month, forever, then they have an idea and a basis.
Yeah.
They're not just trying to memorize what you did. They're going, okay, I'm starting to think through the process.
That's good. And you said, and this is actually something that's helping me too, because as I worked for you, it wasn't always like we got these times to talk, but now that we're having breakfast, I'm starting to understand why you got to that question or how you or why you're thinking that way. And that's really helpful. And you said something to me when we were talking about my business starting. You said early on in your consulting business, you made a mistake. You told them, okay, put this here, put that here, put that here, put the table over there. And when you came back, you're like, okay, how'd it go? They're like, I don't know. We put the table over there and we didn't know what to do. Yeah. So this isn't, and a lot of leaders think that way. The way I do it is the way I do it because I'm the leader and this is how we're going to do it. And everybody needs to think like me. It's not thinking like you. It's thinking through principles and seeing how you would move and then putting your own style into that and going, okay, they would ask this question and what would I conclude? Right. So it's getting them to be curious and it's getting them to think about empowering other people as opposed to just what would this person say? You don't, if you're only trying to and we can talk about that another time, but if you're trying to please a specific person and only replicate what they would want, that's not going to be best for you, the organization, or anybody in life because we're going to have a bunch of clones. Yep. So giving them context to open their mind up to thinking on bigger terms as opposed to one thing.
Yeah, then I think that the next thing is when they have that context, is then when you get into another decision-making moment with them in the room, you then invite them into the decision. And what do you think, right? And what you're doing then is you're building trust. Right. They're like, you care what I think? Yes, I do. Why are you thinking? And then you want to empower them. So and so you want to champion them. So if you're gonna trust them to make the decision, and then you say, what do you think? And then when they make a decision, right? Because they're number one, a good leader or potential good leader. Number two, you put time and effort into the decision making. So you watch them practice that, and they're making those decisions based on good principles, right? And then you see them in the moment and how they're thinking, and you're going, okay, they're thinking well. And then when you leave, and then they make a decision, you come back and you champion that, and you go, how can you champion that? If they make a bad decision, listen, if they're that far along, they're most likely, and I say this a lot. If I'm 90% sure, I do it because I can defend the 10% of the time I'm not. If you wait till 100% sure, you're going to miss the opportunity. Yeah. So along the way, they're so far along that if they could have made a better decision, it still made a good decision. Yeah,
it doesn't derail the organization.
No, and you can champion that. And so along the way, you context, you build trust. They know you trust them. You then let them make the decisions in front of you. You let them lead meetings. You empower them, right? And then they know when you come back, you're going to have their back. You're going to champion them, so they're not afraid to make a decision. But then there's a real key that I do for all my leaders that I've served in the past is I can tell that a lot of them are so driven that they don't want to take time off. They're like, I don't want to leave in case something is decided that I got to unwind. And so I can tell that and allow them to get away with their family. I'm like, listen, we don't have to make a decision for the next 2 weeks. You're like, how can you not make a decision? There are day-to-day decisions that are in your lane that you've been empowered to do and they expect you to make. So you make those decisions. But if there's anything that comes up while I'm gone that's confusing for my leaders, or while my leader's gone, if I'm not leading the organization, sometimes I've led an organization, sometimes I haven't.
Or even if they're a team member and they're in a specific area and you don't know all the context, and they're gone.
So you're like, we can just punt.
Right.
Move, pause. We can send that out for a week or two, and we can make the decision when we come back. Because we talked about this morning that, and I think what you said is really good. Use that.
Right. That came up, and I was like, okay, so there's been studies that have shown speeding. We all want to speed to get there faster, right? But it really only gets us there 2 to 5 minutes faster than somebody who's actually going the speed limit. And you can actually see that based on your GPS. Will tell you your ETA, right? And you maybe beat it by a minute, and you were speeding. Well, there's a risk reward to that. So you might get there 2 to 5 minutes earlier, but you might also get pulled over and be an hour late, right? So what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I could be an hour late, or I could be on time and I could be there 5 minutes after the person who sped and ran the risk of being. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, does this have to be made right now? In 2 weeks, are we still going to all be alive? Is the organization still going to have money? Are we still going to have jobs? Yes, this decision doesn't have to be made right now. Let's just wait.
And then I think the final thing is you model it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to call them while they're on vacation. They shouldn't call me when I'm on vacation because it's called vacation. Right? It's not called work away from the workplace. It's called vacation. So I think along the way, I think those are the things we just kind of spitballed a little bit this morning. But I think you're again, to be redundant, but just to drill it home, is you turn around and you immediately share context in your decision-making process, and then you build trust that they can trust you.
Yeah.
That you got your best effort for them, not for yourself. You're not trying to repeat yourself, like Jill said. You're trying to really say, I want you to be the next generation leader in this organization, and they trust your heart in that. Then you empower them in front of other people to make that decision, and then when you come back, you're going to champion what they decided because you built a good leader, right? And then along the way, then you're going to turn around and say, okay, I'm going to then not only am I going to model that, but I'm going to know that when they make that decision, that it's best for the organization. But you're going to then say, listen, if you're confused, you're not sure, just wait.
Yeah.
It'll be there when we get back. So it's good.
And as you're talking about that too, if you're watching this and you're maybe not the person who's leading the team, maybe you're on the team, right? And you don't necessarily have a bunch of people underneath you. Think about this because they tell you to dress for the job you want. Lead people, even if they're not below you, like you would want to be led, and you'll get to those positions. So if you know your leader's going on vacation, ask the questions you need to ask. Say, hey, what were you thinking on this? Where is this going to go? Can we make this decision now, or do you want to wait till ask before they leave? Think through things. Send the emails you're supposed to send. Make sure they have what they need to go to their leaders so that you don't have to bother them. Because that is really doing what you just said, which is modeling. And then they're not going to bother you when you go on vacation and say, hey, did you forward this email? Hey, I'm trying to find this. Hey, where did you put this? Is it in this closet? Those are the small things that even though they're small, it's still an interruption. So as you're maybe not the leader, you're not in charge, take the time to think about how you would feel if your team took the time to do that for you. And then you're going to someday be there. You're going to someday be there because you're thinking like a leader. And hopefully you can model that for your team then too.
And I think that's good. And I think when people read books or watch this or something, they go, I'm not a leader, you're wrong. And you've heard it said, if you influence someone today, you'll be a leader.
Right.
You can influence your grandchild, and you can influence a spouse, you can influence next door neighbor.
Person at the grocery
You can
store.
influence a grocery store. That's what I was going to say, exactly, the grocery store. But so you're really leading someone, okay? So so leadership is not a position, it's a lifestyle, really.
Right.
And then in that leadership moment, if you're not leading, like Jill said, I like what Jill said, I agree with that. I would say this to you as well. Go tell your leader you want to be a better leader. Say, I want to lead. Can you teach me how to lead? Can you? And some leaders will say no, and some will say yes. If you're not afraid of a no, then ask the question. And if they say no to that, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You eventually need to find a place that people will pour into you and bring all the best that's out in you, because there's great things in you. You have greatness in you.
Yeah.
You're made uniquely and especially by God. Put on this earth, the Bible says, to do great things, not average things, not above average things, but great things. And so if you're not doing that yet, it's coming your way. Get excited about that. And put yourself in an environment, in a place, and around people that care enough about you to bring out those things in you, stretch you, challenge you, but also encourage you that, a mistake doesn't define you. Failure doesn't define you. I mean, so pain has a purpose. Your mess can be a message.
Yeah.
Your test can become a testimony, and your story's not over, so it can bring God glory.
Yeah. It's helpful to know who wants to be developed too.
Yeah.
Like just saying that, and honestly, we can get into this discussion later, but no is not going to kill you. At the end of the day, it's fine. As long as you're not trying to please yourself and you're not trying to think, my pride. It's really a pride situation, whether or not you think it is. It's not going to hurt physically to be told no. Your heart doesn't need to break when you're told no. You just need to understand that the answer sometimes is no. And asking the question is far better, because you're going to express what you feel. You're saying, hey, I really want to lead more. And someday, it might be a not yet, and it might be a bad time for your leader, and that you might not have noticed it, but later on they're going to remember, hey, this person wants to be invested in. So you're planting those seeds, right? So don't be afraid of no. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I want to learn some more, because I bet your leader wants to invest in you.
I was growing up with my grandmother that I stayed with every day. Interesting. I was climbing this apple tree, and then she was afraid I was going to get hurt, so she took a branch and she spanked me. And then another day I was down by the dock, the boat dock, and I got too close to the water, and she got scared, and I got in trouble. And so I got so mad at her that I went out and sat by the front driveway waiting for my mom to come. And I thought my mom was really going to get on to my grandma for getting me in trouble. And so she said, what are you sitting out there for? And I'm like, well, because Granny I got in trouble for climbing the tree and going by the boat dock. And she goes, get in the car. So we drove in, and she got the story from my grandma, and I got in double trouble because that was my fault, not hers, right? But the point is don't be afraid to try something new.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of a no, because it can be a learning experience to help you on the other side. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
I don't know if that was a great analogy.
I don't know if it was or not. We'll see. When I play it back, we'll see if it gets in there. I don't know. But no, this was just one of those examples of an organic topic that kind of came up.
Yep.
Just leadership wise. Just for me, sometimes people already know these things, but I say it all the time. Like, well, it was a revelation for me. You know what? If it's a revelation for you, share it. It's going to be one for somebody else. Even if 10 people already know, you're going to find one person that doesn't. So keep being curious and keep asking questions and keep empowering people. Keep being a good leader. We believe in you guys a lot, and we just want to see you become all that God created you to be.
That's it.
So make sure you check us out. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications bell. We're going to pop back on here many times, hopefully, with this podcast. Like I said, he's busy. So when I get him, I get him.
So hit the website, which is
becomingresources.com as well. Has some resources for you to be able to be a better leader, better speaker, have some writing tips. I have a blog on there as well. Those little revelations I have, those pop in. And then just some speaking examples as well. But my whole goal when people ask me what is it that I do, sometimes it's hard to define as a self-employed person. But my goal is to use who God's made me to be to help other people become all that they're created to be. So that's what I want for you.
so awesome.
Yeah. Have an awesome day, guys.